Like you could have okay copy, but if you have a great offer, then people are going to reply, right? So in order of importance is deliverability, the list, who you're reaching out to, and then what you're actually offering them. The fourth piece would be the actual copy, so the messaging. So we can, after we go through the framework, we can kind of dive deeper into any of these that you want, Jordo. But copy, of course, has to be considered because again, people get a lot of messages. So how are you going to make sure you're not just saying the same thing everyone else is saying? The best tip I can give you here is start looking at the cold emails that you're getting. And open up your LinkedIn, look at the DMs you're getting on LinkedIn. You'll see that most people are kind of saying like the same stuff, right? So if you get a sense for the lay of the land and what everyone's sending you, then you can know like how to be different and how to not say that, right? And you can also see like which emails actually get your attention versus which ones are like, this is just garbage, right? So start to actually like be a consumer of this cold messaging, and that'll help you kind of, just again, break the pattern a little bit and just do something different.
If you're growing a software company, or especially any B2B enterprise level software company, one of the hottest opportunities that you have in advertising is cold outbound. But the entire landscape has changed for both outbound email, outbound LinkedIn, outbound lump email. It's become far, far, far more competitive and difficult from a technical perspective on how do you reach your perfect prospect. So I had to bring in my friend AJ Casada from Revenue Boost, who is, in my networks, one of the de facto geniuses when it comes not only to the technical, but also the strategic side of outbound. And of course, even us here in Rivado, we've had a ton of challenges when it comes to outbound. And it seems like you really need way more volume out there than you did 5 years ago. You need 5 times better messaging than you did 5 years ago. You need 5 to 10 times more chops, opportunity volume, more grit. And so I want to distill down in this episode, how do you leverage AI into building cold outbound campaigns that can actually get results and actually scale? So with that, welcome in AJ all the way from Vietnam. So it's pitch dark where you are. It's morning time over here in the States, but welcome into the show. Glad to have you on Retention Effect.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to dive in today.
So give us the 30-second overview so people have some context. Why did you start Revenue Boost? What is that as a service? But overall, I'd like to dive in after that kind of more into what is happening in the outbound game, because it seems like things are radically shifting. There's more tools, there's more options than ever. But just to kick off, what's Revenue Boost? And then let's dive into really the state of the union as far as outbound campaigns are concerned.
Yeah, there has been a lot of changes and a lot of things that we've completely reinvented our approach the last year or so. So I'm excited to dive into that. Just background on us and me personally. So Revenue Boost is a cold email agency. We primarily work with B2B SaaS and then other various B2B high ticket services, and we really just run their outbound motion for them. We also do a little bit of LinkedIn as well, but far majority of our clients are coming into us because they want to get cold email working, and they've tried some things and it's just not working, or they just want to really take it to the next level and have someone else deal with the headache that comes with it. And then we also do a little bit of consulting as well, but far majority of what we're doing is just done for you, because when you really want to scale it and start sending like 50, 100 plus thousand emails a month, it gets very, technical to be able to do it right. Especially just to be able to land into the inbox and actually get a good delivery. So that's what we do. I started doing it because I was actually running a different B2B business a couple years back. I started into the online world with a local lead gen agency, which was doing Facebook and Google ads for local businesses, primarily like doctors' offices and whatnot. And I was actually getting all of my clients through cold email because I like, before I got into entrepreneurship, I worked in actually door-to-door sales. So I did like real world outbound and did sales and marketing for a big construction company in America. And I kind of had learned like how outbound works just by having like sales teams and doing all of that like in-person real life stuff. And then when I started my own agency, I thought, hey, why don't I just do that same concept and just do it through like email, right? So it ended up working really well. I got pretty much all of our clients for our agency and just growing it solely off of cold email. And then through that, a lot of other peers, other agency owners, other people I was in like groups and, masterminds with were asking me like, how are you doing this cold email thing? And they didn't really have a good way to get clients, or not the clients they wanted. Because one of the benefits of cold email is it's like so targeted. So long story short, a lot of people were just asking me for help, and I realized there was a huge opportunity at the time, like not a lot of like experts or agencies doing it. So then I started Revenue Boost, and I actually got into it at the hardest time because it's really gotten a lot harder the last couple of years. So as soon as I started doing it for other people, that's when it just became really, really hard. But it's allowed me to get a lot better at it. So I always think there's a positive to any hardship and industry difficulties that come up when things change.
Hey, are you offering subscriptions or high ticket payment plans in your business? Well, I know for a fact the number one problem that you're going to be facing is churn or retention overall. You and no one on your team wants to be dealing with this. It's difficult, it's time consuming, and to build these systems for high retention is extremely hard. That's why we exist here at Ravato. We're a fully done for you service where we install into your existing systems. You have no changes to your product, your price points, your internal teams. There's no new hires. And we literally go out and recover failed payments, renegotiate payment plans with your customers, and even deflect hard cancellary requests. We're entirely performance based. So we don't even have anything to sell you. You literally don't pay us a penny until after we've won back some of your at risk customers. Want to invite you to a demo with us? Get information on the link down below. Well, I kind of want to use that gross phrase, the lift of the kimono, kind of to reveal my own weaknesses and challenges that we've had. So I'm just going to spill my guts here for a second. We've had probably 3 to 5 cold outbound either attempts or agencies, specialists that have come in, and frankly, they almost always target us with cold email, which tends
Mm,
to work to get us on board and give them a shot. And our offer is probably one of the selfishly, it's one of the best in the space where it doesn't cost anything up front. There's no long contracts. There's no minimums. We literally print money back to you, winning your subscribers back for you on an entirely performance base. And so people hear that, they're like, man, I can blow that out of the water. It's going to be so easy. We're going to get, you wouldn't believe like how good we're going to do. So they dive in, they give us like preferential terms and whatnot. They're like, this is going to be huge. Let's crank and go. And then month 1 goes by and they haven't driven. Maybe they've gotten 3 positive replies, right? And then month 2 comes around, still almost nothing. And this perpetual trend of outbound motions, it could be that we're doing it entirely wrong. It could be that we're underestimating how difficult it actually is, or maybe there's
mm,
technical issues. There's so much to be concerned about, but we're also trying to run the company and we have other, marketing motions in place. We're like, all right, we'd really like to lean into cold outbound. And there are ways to get it done right. We ended up bringing on a tremendous full-time person who's out there just prospecting manually and doing this. But again, the challenge really has been so many vendors, as you mentioned, competitive in the space. It seems like maybe a lot of young entrepreneurs think this is the way I can do it. It's like I can go just pitch that I'm going to get them some new leads and brand new sales and demos, and then it's going to fall on a silver plate. It'll be super easy, but it's just not that easy. And so
mm.
for us, there's like this graveyard of failed attempts in the past where it seems like opportunity or the volume of outbounding wasn't enough, or their messaging sucked, or whatever it was. So help break down, why is it that it seems, maybe it's just my perspective, so check me on my perspective, that it just seems like outbound in general, maybe it's because so many people are getting 20 to 30 outbound messages a day, it's hard to stand out. Why is the efficacy of outbound such a challenge right now in this market?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few reasons, but there's really 2 big ones. One is the one you mentioned, is a lot of people are doing it. So I like, my theory is, as ads have just kind of gotten more and more expensive year over year, more people are looking to other methods that are like less capital intensive, right? Um, Along with that, it's maybe 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of tools came out that just made it a lot easier and cheaper to run outbound. Like when I first started doing cold email, I was literally like manually emailing people and doing like BCCing, and it was a lot harder back then. But the tool that we use that powers our whole agency is instantly.ai. And pretty much they were the first tool that came onto the market and made it a lot easier to run outbound, a lot cheaper, because they said, hey, you can have one fixed price and you can connect 500 email accounts if you want, and send like crazy volume, and it's still going to be the same price, right? So they really just like leveled the playing field and made it a lot more accessible. So since then, so many people are, and there's been a lot of other tools similar that have kind of come out after that, because I think they're doing like 80 million a year now. So of course, a lot of copycats. So anyways, it's become a lot easier and cheaper to run outbound on your own. Easier in the sense, like, it's not necessarily easier to get results, but it's easier to actually just get a campaign up and running and just to try the channel, right? For a lot less risk. Like really in like half an afternoon, you can be up and running, right? Half an afternoon, a couple $100, and you can have something actually live, which there's not a lot of marketing channels where you can actually do that, right? Especially if you're just like brand new to the channel. So that's one part of it. A lot more people are doing it. And therefore that just means if your prospects are getting 20 or 30 a day, like they still might respond to outbound emails. I still do, but the bar is much higher of like being able to cut through the noise is much harder, right? Because if they're not just getting an email from you, they're getting 30 other emails. And even if those 30 other emails aren't pitching the same offer that you're pitching, it's still 30 other emails that like they have to compare you to because they're only going to read so many of them, right? So that's one part of it. And there are some ways to counteract it, which we can talk about as well. But one part of it is that there's just a lot more happening. But I don't mean that as like a bad thing. Like that doesn't mean that the channel is less effective. It just means that you have to approach it differently, right? So if something's saturated, that doesn't mean that it's like bad. Like people have been saying Facebook ads is like saturated for a while, right? Because now like almost everyone runs ads, right? So if something's saturated, it just means that you have to have a better offer, a better approach, better messaging. It really just means that you have to try harder, right? So like 5 years ago, 7 years ago with Outbound, you could just really be pretty lazy with a cold email campaign, get a huge list, slap up a template that you got on Google and just get leads. So I think it kind of set like the high expectation for people, but now we're seeing like what it really takes to get results, and it's more effort, but it still works if you can break through. That's one part of it. The other part is deliverability. Spam filters have just gotten way stricter the last couple of years. It's just a lot harder to actually land in the inbox now, and I think AI has a big effect on that as well because there's just more actual like spam happening, and then also scams, right? Like I think these companies like Google and Yahoo, they're not really punishing cold emailers because they hate cold email. I actually found out that the internal team at Google that promotes Google Ads uses cold email to sell Google Ads, right? So it's not like they're anti-spam because of marketers. It's because they're trying to prevent like legitimate scams, right? Which now is just happening a lot more because AI has made it easier to scam people. So with that as well, with basically prospects being more inundated and the channel just being a little bit more diluted, plus the fact that it's just harder to actually like avoid the spam filters and land in someone's inbox, that's made it a lot harder, but still worthwhile if you can crack the nut.
Yeah, so I wanna ask for something that's so obtuse, and I fully understand the nature of what I'm asking here, but I did preface this ahead of time, so you should know it's coming. And I just wanna note here as well, so many of the cold outbound messages that at least I respond to when people hit me up, they're not relying just on the data that they're scraping from my LinkedIn profile. Like they're actually doing something unique. They're making some kind of a connection point. They're doing their research to know what's happening with us. And that's exceptionally hard to do. It's like what's going on in this person's brain before I even reach out to them. That's a tough game. So let's presume someone here is launching a brand new outbound campaign for email. They've never done it before, and they want to avoid all the pitfalls, as many as humanly possible, to get a campaign not just up and running, but actually start to see some results from this. Break us down and give us the masterclass, just tactically speaking, of avoiding the pitfalls and saying, step one, you need this account, get this set up, get these emails warmed up. Step two, we need to dial in the messaging and get some early campaigns running. What does it look like from a minimum viable perspective, really the MVP, a minimum viable perspective? How can we get a brand new campaign for someone who's just brand new to cold email? They want to figure this out. They want to push it on their own. What tactical steps should they be following? And really, what numbers should they be shooting for to
Yeah.
be able to see that things are actually going to back out and make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So there's really 5 elements to a cold email campaign. So these are the 5 things you focus on when you're getting started. And also these are the 5 things that you look at one by one if your campaign's not performing in terms of like diagnosing. So when you mentioned that you had a lot of people try Outbound for you and not get results, like I would be looking at each of these 5 areas for their campaigns, right? So the first is the technical infrastructure because you have to get good deliverability. I don't know about you, but I don't just like sit in my email and like read through my spam folder, right? And so nobody's going to actually read the spam folder, and your email has to get read if it's going to get replied to, right? So deliverability is really the most important thing because if that's not working, then nothing else matters. You could be promising people that you're going to give them a free $1 million, right? And it doesn't matter if they're not going to see it. So deliverability is the first thing. The first thing you do is you set up infrastructure, you set up inboxes and domains. So for anyone who's new to this, you don't want to be using your main business domain for cold outreach because some people will mark you as spam. Some people are just grumpy and they're going to take it out on you, right? And some people just don't like getting cold outreach and they're going to mark you as spam no matter how good your offer is. Over time, after enough spam complaints, eventually you're going to have inboxes get blacklisted and shut down. Now you don't want that to happen. Like I was talking to someone recently who they were using their main domain for outreach and now they can't send transactional emails. Now they can't reach out to their partners and their clients, right? It was really a whole mess. So you basically just want to set up your own private infrastructure, which is inboxes and domains, not connected to your main domain. And you could just have like a dash in your name or like a one or like a .net versus a .com, just simple changes. And I call them burner domains, right? They're just things that are eventually meant to like just be thrown out, right? So first you set that up. I would recommend instantly.ai. So that's basically like an all-in-one cold email tool. At our agency, we use a lot of different tools together to kind of get the most optimal result for our clients. But you can really do everything in one tool. If you're a beginner, just keep it simple. Use instantly.ai, and then you can kind of layer in like other tools later to get a little bit fancy with it and do some more advanced things. But really, with Instantly, you can set up the inboxes, you can get the list, write the copy, send it out, etc. But you get
So
Instantly,
step
you
one
get
is
inboxes and
instantly
domains.
and probably 10 burner domains. So instantly account and 10 domains that are like a .net or like a go your name.net or something along those lines. So like 10 domains, is that appropriate?
Yeah, I would get 20. So usually for like all of our clients, when we onboard them, we'll usually get 150 to 200 domains. No, 150 to 200 inboxes, which is usually 40 domains because we recommend 5 inboxes per domain. So we'll usually do like 200, but of course with us, if they're hiring us, there's a monthly fee, so they have to like get an ROI on that, right? So you could obviously you're spending less and you're doing it yourself. There's less of like a target there, but really like 100 inboxes is a good minimum starting point because that allow you to send 1,000 to 2,000 a day, which again sounds like a lot, but in most niches that's just going to be like maybe 3 to 5 leads a day when you have campaigns pretty optimized. So usually 100 is good, and also not because you want to use all 100, but you want to keep some as backups. Like I mentioned earlier, all inboxes have a shelf life, right? They're eventually going to die. They're going to get marked as spam, and then they're not going to be recoverable. Now, we've tried all the ways of fixing them, and we found that it's not worth it to try to fix inboxes. It's so easy just to buy another inbox and plug it into your Instantly. So nowadays, when we find that inbox is having issues, we just pretty much replace it. So usually, if you have 100 inboxes, you could have 50 that are being used for the campaign, 50 that are backups. That way, if some of your original 50 are having problems, you can just swap in new ones and not have any downtime, right? And that's how you can keep deliverability high, like above everything else, above all the technical things you can learn. If you just did that, you'll have good deliverability because as soon as you see inboxes start to decline in performance, you just replace them with fresh ones that are fully warmed up. And if you do that, you'll always be able to have a pretty good status quo for deliverability. So again, there's a million things you could learn about deliverability and it's quite technical, but if you know nothing else and you just replace the bad ones and you just look at the numbers, then you're in pretty good shape. And Instantly also has a feature called inbox placement testing where it'll just basically send emails from your 100 inboxes and it'll tell you what percentage is landing in spam or not. So it's pretty easy to find this data nowadays. So that's the first step is get your infrastructure set up, get 100 inboxes or so, 20 domains, 5 on each, and know that some of them are going to be set aside for backup, which you don't touch. Um, Second piece is the list. So, and this is all in order of importance, by the way. So deliverability is first because nobody reads spam. The list is second because again, you could have the best offer in the world, but if you're not reaching the right person who that's relevant to, then nothing else matters as well, right? Like I always like to say that you can't sell meat to a vegan, even if you were giving them like Wagyu steaks for $1, right? Um, so that's the most important part. The second most important part, honestly, I see this messed up a lot because I feel like half the cold emails I receive, first of all, it's always other outbound agencies, and I'm like, you guys aren't really very good at this if you're targeting me, right? um, so which is funny. Like you would think that the people that are professional doing it would be the best at this, but I get mistargeted all the time. So over half the cold emails I get, probably even like a lot more than that. It's like clearly not for me. They're selling something that has nothing to do with my business, or they're just a competitor targeting me and they didn't know that like I sell the same thing that they do.
Right.
So yeah, it's surprising how many people mess this up, but you can't just like, if you go to Apollo or LinkedIn and you build a list, you have to realize that it's really an imperfect system. There's going to be a lot of keywords that get you other companies. Like if you want to target, let's say, roofing companies and you type in construction as an industry into LinkedIn and you're building a list or any tool like Apollo, ZoomInfo, whatever, it's not going to give you construction companies. It's going to give you companies that are software that are in the construction industry. It's going to give you staffing companies. It's going to give you marketing agencies, right? Consultants that they have clients in that industry. So they list their industry as that, right? Because people have to self-select their industry when they're opening up their company page on LinkedIn, which is really where most of these databases get their like lists from. So anyways, it's quite imperfect. You can't just take a list and then hope it's going to be good. You have to really take that list and then verify that the leads are the right leads. So that's a big piece of it as well, is actually getting the list quality, which we can talk through as well. I'm happy to like talk about some examples as well.
So number one is
Yeah.
deliverability. We want to get instantly. We want 100 inboxes, which is 5 emails across 20 domains. Number two, we want to get the list and ensure that it's accurate. So whether you're using Clay for enrichment or ZoomInfo or Apollo or wherever you're getting your data from, is to verify that those leads are as accurate as possible. And you can almost even just do like a spot check on a couple of these. If it's like
Yeah.
in construction at Facebook Media or whatever.com, it's probably going to be an agency, and it's probably not going to be an actual construction company. So verifying
Mm.
your actual lists are going to be our quality, and to run through systems for that. What would be number three as we move down the line?
Yeah. So one just more critical thing about the list is segment them, right? So if you want to just take, if you have 10,000 leads and you're putting it all on one list, it's usually going to be a pretty mixed bag. So there's a few things we segment by. One is the industry, another is the company size, and the third is the job title. Usually it's like the function, not necessarily the job title, because if you target sales director versus sales manager, you can pretty much say the same thing. But if you target a sales manager versus a marketing manager, you should really be having a different campaign with different messaging, right? And that's another way that people really go wrong. Most emails I get, I feel like they're just using language or offers that don't really pertain to like what I handle in the company. So segmentation is key because one of the biggest reasons cold emails don't get replied to is that it's just not relevant, right? It's not relevant to the person you're reaching out to. So if you have a list of marketing managers and VPs of sales and CEOs, and you're just sending one campaign to all of them, you're going to have to basically make your message generic enough so that it kind of like sort of makes sense to each of the different job titles. So you're kind of diluting it to like appease everyone. You really want to just create those into separate campaigns as well. So that's the other critical piece around lists is segment them so that you can really speak to the right person, the right company. Company size is important too because targeting a business with 5 people versus 500 people, like those are two totally different beasts, and the problems that you would solve for them are very different as well, right? So that's really key. Like, and especially with job titles, people are measured on different metrics, right? If you're talking to CEOs, they care about very high level business outcomes, right? But if you're talking to a mid level manager, they have specific metrics that they're measured on for their job, and they don't really care about the business as a whole. They care about the metrics that they're responsible for. So if you can talk about how you'll help them make those metrics go up, or the tools that they're using in their specific role, that's going to go over a lot better. So that's the last piece around list. And the next thing is the actual offer. So like, what are you selling, right? And really should kind of match your offer to the particular market segment, assuming that you have different offers or at least different services or like different ways you use even if you just have a SaaS that has just one tool, there's probably different features, different use cases, right? Different ways that you would position that offer depending on who you're reaching out to. So you want to kind of test that as well. So an offer doesn't just mean to me like one thing that you're selling. It's the different components of that and the different ways that you would position it and present that. And then also you can consider having lead magnets as well. So we pretty much are almost always testing lead magnets. Like that's one way to really stand out. Again, a lot of people are getting cold emails now, but not a lot of people are sending cold emails where they're actually giving something valuable away for free. So just think what's something you can give away for free. I think if you are a SaaS company, it's pretty easy. Like you can of course give a free trial or a free like whatever, like some free use case. But it doesn't always have to actually be your product. It could be insights. It could be hopping on a call to share with them like what's working in their space. It could be coming up with a plan for them or some sort of audit or analysis about their current state, right? So there's a lot of things you can do for that, but definitely test a few lead magnets because yeah, like this is number 3 in the list because it matters a lot more than copy. Like you could have okay copy, but if you have a great offer, then people are going to reply, right? So in order of
Hmm.
importance is deliverability, the list, who you're reaching out to, and then what you're actually offering them. The fourth piece would be the actual copy, so the messaging. So we can, after we go through the framework, we can kind of dive deeper into any of these that you want, Jordo. But copy, of course, has to be considered because again, people get a lot of messages. So how are you going to make sure you're not just saying the same thing everyone else is saying? The best tip I can give you here is start looking at the cold emails that you're getting. And open up your LinkedIn, look at the DMs you're getting on LinkedIn. You'll see that most people are kind of saying like the same stuff, right? So if you get a sense for the lay of the land and what everyone's sending you, then you can know like how to be different and how to not say that, right? And you can also see like which emails actually get your attention versus which ones are like this is just garbage, right? So start to actually like be a consumer of this cold messaging, and that'll help you kind of just again break the pattern a little bit and just do something different. Other than that, just some lighting quick tips I can give you would be keep it short and sweet, 3 to 5 sentences. Most emails are read on mobile, so if you send someone an essay, then they're just gonna either throw it in the trash or they're just gonna like very lightly skim it. So keep it really straight and to the point. I mean, at the end of the day, you're doing cold outreach, right? People didn't opt in to be on your list, so they're not gonna sit there and read a long sales letter by a stranger, right? They have better things to do, especially when you're B2B and you're emailing busy executives, right? So you really should be getting to the point of how you can specifically help this person in the first 2 sentences. Nothing about you, your company, your features, your social proof until you've established, hey, you and your role, here's why I'm reaching out to you specifically, and here's how we can help you, right? So everything should be framed in like the you language, not the I language. And you have to realize like people when someone's in their inbox, they're trying to get in there and get out, right? like they're usually doing emails like a start of their day before they have a busy day, right? It's not like, you're targeting someone on Facebook and they're sitting there and they have 30 minutes to waste, right? And be like, read something or watch something. So you have to really be quick because they're in their inbox. It's like the inbox is more of a to-do list, right? It's just, let me get in here, get everything done quickly and get out. And of course, the last thing they're going to prioritize is reading sales emails, right? They're dealing with their clients, their partners. So you have to kind of realize the mindset someone's in when they're in their email inbox and adapt to that. So that's the fourth piece. And I could talk about copy all day, but we could definitely dive into that a little bit more with the remaining time. The fifth piece is just the volumes. This one is like, I see this a lot. Someone will ask me to audit their campaign, and they actually have a pretty good campaign, but they've only sent like 400 emails. And these days, because you mentioned numbers as well, Jordo. So um, one lead for every 300 to 400 emails sent is actually pretty good. And obviously, this varies per industry. But generally, like if we get a client one lead for 300 to 400 emails, that's pretty good across most industries. Even 1 to 500 is pretty like common now, right? So if you want to be getting like a lead a day, that's 500 emails a day, and that's assuming that you've taken the time to optimize your campaign and complete several rounds of testing, right? So most people just vastly underestimate the amount of volume it takes. It takes more volume now than it did in the past because the channel's gotten harder, and also like only so many people are going to be in the market for what you're selling, right? Especially
Mm,
with some offers more so than others. So like if you're selling someone on cybersecurity or you're selling someone on rebranding, they might do those things like once every 5 years. They might make a change there,
mm,
maybe, or maybe even like a lot longer, right? So more so with whatever you're selling, you might actually expect like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 2,000 because there's just not a lot of people that are going to be open to having a conversation about what you're selling right now, right? Which is why the offer is key because again, like if someone doesn't need what you're selling or they don't really have any use for it, then the copy doesn't really matter, right? So yeah, keep your expectations reasonable there. That's why I said start with 100 inboxes, because if you can send 1,000 a day, that's going to give you some pretty good traction in most industries.
yeah, I would say that probably from our experiments, I don't think these vendors were sending nearly enough. Like if we're talking about one lead for 500 emails and they're only sending, one or maybe one or 200 a day, we can expect one lead every couple days. And how many leads does it take to get a demo booked, and how many demos booked does it take to actually close a sale in that case? So I think volume is a huge
Totally.
component of that. But I really want to lean into the nature of offers because I think this is one that now I feel like I have a much better understanding of, but I certainly didn't for a very long time. Is we talk about lead magnets all day, and I think 10 years ago is like, here's this free PDF guide or whatever. Here's this thing that you can go read and essentially give someone an assignment. These days, that stuff just doesn't really work anymore. People don't want more on their plate;
Yeah.
they want less. So I guess what I'm curious about is like the nature of going out to give an offer. I think that was also a mistake that we have made in the past is that we went straight to the demo. It's like, hey, we got all this. Here's all this great social proof. Here's the results. Do you want to book a demo? And it's like this very high friction decision for them to have to make where you almost need to buffer up prior to that. What's a step before a demo? Even if there's no sales pitch involved in the demo necessarily, what could we be leading, up to before then to ensure that we're removing some of the resistance? So is it your opinion that if it's a very high dollar, maybe high value, product or service that's going to be sold, that there should be a certain set of steps or offers leading up to that? And maybe if it's something like I've seen instantly offering just again, we're not affiliated with them or anything, but I have seen their cold outbound. They've got $100 a month plan or whatever it is, and they're still doing cold outbound, with that. And so with maybe a lower dollar or lower risk offer, on the front, you can just go straight in for the offer and say, here it is. Do you want it or not? Is that kind of your opinion? So like your offer, your lead magnet, your flow leading up to the sale, primarily being deterministic on the price point? Or is it just the nature of seasonality? Or how do you
Mm.
think about that as it relates to high and low dollar or price point offers?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I'd imagine a lot of listeners are maybe on both ends of the spectrum, knowing your audience. It's a little bit of both. It does have a little bit to do with the pricing. So yeah, if you have a really low price, like instantly is a great deal for what it is. That's why they're kind of being forthright about their pricing. If you're kind of competing on price, or if your pricing is really a selling factor, then you would want to say that in the email, right? Or at least test saying that, right? Because then people just know like it's low risk. So maybe I'm thinking, oh, I don't really want to hop on a demo, but oh wait, I know I'll spend $100 to try this out. Like maybe that's better for me than hopping on multiple demos to try to like set this up, right? Well, part of it is depending on the pricing. And yes, if you have a, a very long, complex sales cycle or a very high dollar item, then, something free or something low price as well would be a great way to get in the door. The reason I say it's like a half answer, it's like a little bit of both, is because no matter what you're selling, I would still test both. Even when we have clients that have very, like high dollar value offers, six-figure plus contract values, we still test going straight to a call because like there's going to be some people in your market that are just solution aware, they're shopping right now, and you're better off being direct with them versus saying like, go try this free thing or whatever, right? So you can almost maybe like possibly repel someone that really was like the best, most qualified lead if you didn't just give them a straight path to buy. That's in my opinion. So that's why I like to always kind of do both. I know people have different philosophies on that, but I think it's just about kind of having different offers for different people in the market. So always do lead magnets and always do direct to call as well. Because obviously, if you can get direct to call to work, then that's the best case scenario.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think like so when we're doing direct to call and we're finding that it's not working, then we'll usually go shift more towards like let's try a lot more lead magnets and kind of like decrease the friction. So we're usually like for us, like when a client's hiring us because they want booked calls, we're typically going towards the booked call right away because we have to, like in our case, we have to bring them booked calls to meet like the certain ROI. Um, and if we can't get a lot of booked calls, then we'll kind of start to decrease friction more and more. Okay, what if we can try to get them on a call for this free thing, or what if we can give them this, right? So, yeah, typically when we're doing a few rounds of testing and it's not working, then the answer to us is let's decrease the friction. Another way you could decrease the friction is with information. So instead of saying, "Hey, here's this thing I sell. Would you like to hop on a demo?" One thing we've been doing a lot of is saying like, hey, would you like to read a one pager? Would you like to take 2 minutes to watch this video? Right. So you can still like bring them through the sales process for your high ticket thing, but at least decrease friction of what you're asking in the cold email by putting like an intermediate step of just something that's like really easy for them to consume to get a sense for what you're selling without having to actually hop on a demo. So that's been a big thing we've been doing a lot more this past year. But yeah, do it all. Test offering like a one pager, test straight to a demo for those really sales ready leads, and then test different lead magnets. And if it's not working, then just decrease friction more and more to the point where it's like you're almost giving like a lot of value away, or you are giving a lot of value away.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. No, I would be completely remiss if I didn't force feed some AI into the conversation. So, as you guys have really seen the emergence of AI in all of these tools, and I know Instantly has AI tools, and Clay is data enrichment using AI, and there's so many AI tools, but there's also a lot of noise as that's
Mm.
concerned. What is like the laser focused, super targeted strategy? How do we leverage AI to multiply our effect? Do we want to primarily focus with like lead scraping using AI, or do we want to focus more of our energy on the copy and iteration of messaging with AI? Like what tools absolutely must have AI for the greatest ROI?
Yeah, for sure. So there's two specific things that have the most impact in terms of using AI to get more pipeline and more books calls. One is with the actual lead list part. So, and Clay.com does both of these. That's what I use for most of this. So there's a lot you can do with your lead list. If you take a lead list of 10,000 leads, first you can qualify your leads. You can say, here's my ICP. Tell me how many of these people are actually in my ICP. So you can immediately take out all of the junk or all of the mismatched leads, right? And by the way, the junk leads, the people that are not your ICP that you email, those people are more likely to mark you as spam. Because if I get an email that's like clearly not meant for me, and it just feels like this person was really lazy with their targeting and it's a waste of my time, I'm more likely to mark it as spam. But if someone sends me an email and it's like really relevant to like me and my role and actually useful, even if I'm not like gonna hop on a call, I'm very unlikely to mark them as spam or block them or something, right? So yeah, having poor quality lead lists is a huge risk to deliverability. Um, so one, you can qualify your leads, right? Which is really easy. And there's some industries that are really hard to qualify. Like if you're targeting e-commerce businesses, that's really hard to get lead lists for, right? Because, like they might list themselves as like retail or consumer goods, but that could mean so many other things, right? An e-commerce business that's selling like sports equipment might list themselves in the fitness industry. They're not going to list themselves online as like a retail business, right? So there's some industries that are notoriously hard to actually pin down. SaaS is another one, right? Because you can't just target computer software industry because that could mean a lot of different things, right? That could be software development companies. So especially in those niches where it's hard to like, where you have like a very specific type of ICP and it might be hard to get through conventional databases. Clay is really great for just taking the list and then prompting AI to qualify it and tell you if it meets this criteria. You can also segment leads that way. So in your case, Jordo, like you guys are selling Bravado, right? you could have a lead list and you could say, hey, tell me if they have a subscription offer or not, right? Or tell me the price points of their subscription, right? Or tell me if it's like a product led growth model where people can sign up on their website or whatever, right? So you can kind of spin them into different campaigns based on the type of lead they are, right? Um, the next would just be to score them, right? So if you have, again, different ICPs and you want to maybe prioritize leads that have, that are like your best fit leads, or maybe match your best clients, then you can score leads as well. So there's a lot you can do just to manipulate your lead list to qualify them, filter them, prioritize them, score them. And that's really, really cool. The next piece, the second piece would be for the actual AI, for the messaging, right? So we don't really have AI just like write the full email, but we usually have it fill in parts of the email with research. So if you think about what a salesperson would do if they're manually doing outbound, they might spend like 10 minutes to research a prospect and find out something that's happening in the company, something about what they're selling, or something, maybe some news that's happening, right? Some changes in the company. And they might use that in their message or in their call to tie that into like why they need this offer. And that's why manual outreach tends to outperform in terms of response rate, because you're sending like a really thoughtful, personalized email, and the person appreciates that you took time out of your day to actually like learn about the company and find like a real problem you can solve, right? So now you can do that with AI, right? Within tools like Clay, you can have an AI agent, research anything you want about the company, anything that's publicly available that's like digital, you can research, and then you can use that to feed into your email template, right? And then import that into a tool like instantly to send it. But that's really cool because there's so much you can do with that. There's like unlimited possibilities. But again, normally salespeople do this manually, and this is why they get pretty high response rates. And now you can pretty much get the best of both, right? You can have that like curated, personalized outreach that salespeople do, but you can also still send thousands a day, which is what salespeople can't do, right? So we do that in almost all of our campaigns. It's a good way to stand out, and it definitely helps us get a pretty good edge.
Well, it's obvious. It's super obvious here that this episode, this 30-minute span of time is not nearly enough to extract from your brain all the strategies that you've got locked up in there. And so maybe we should end up doing another episode where we just like break it down in real time and go
Yeah,
super in depth. But this has been insanely helpful. I am curious before we kind of get into our wrap up. One thing that's kind of sticking in my mind is I've noticed that I saw recently this big campaign that Burger King did where they had like this geofencing app and they put it around every single McDonald's, and they said you can get a Whopper for a penny if you drive by a McDonald's and you check in. Like, so you're going to McDonald's, it's called like the Burger King pit stop or something, like, or Whopper pit stop. Anyway, this viral campaign where they're actually sending people to McDonald's to claim the 1 penny, which effectively they'd not shop at McDonald's, they'd end up going over to Burger King, and it went viral, and they like tripled their revenue. It was like this like lunatic idea that happened to work out, for them in this kind of viral competitive structure. Is that the way that you see cold outbound going? Maybe not that obtuse, but how far should we be focusing on standing out, being hyper personalized and individualized to that person, where it's like I'm just seeing this trend line of mass email campaigns and outbound being so hard to stand out just via email. Should we be shooting a Loom video personalized to that person for every single lead, or should we be doing something that's kind of over the top? Or maybe you have an example of one campaign that you guys have run that was a little over the top and actually performed really well. Like, how standard should we be thinking? Because it is saturated and it's competitive, but it's also because it works. It can certainly work, but is going above and beyond really the future of cold outbound?
yeah. I think some of the strategies we're talking about today are going to really become, or kind of already are becoming, like the prerequisite. Like just that's your seat at the table, right? So you have to be learning some of these things around, qualifying your lead list with AI and personalizing your messaging, because it's only going to get more difficult as more people do it, right? I don't see it getting any easier anytime soon. That's not to say that you need to have these like crazy, complicated, super advanced campaigns, because I think when you're just getting started, that can be a little overwhelming, and a lot of them don't always work. Like once I learned how to use Clay, my team and I definitely over-indexed on building these like fancy workflows that looked cool to us, but didn't actually bring in results, right? So there's still plenty of times where the best performing campaign is a templated, direct, well-written message to the right person that has zero personalization or zero AI, right? So we're still always doing that as well. But yeah, I always recommend testing some of those, creative campaigns and finding a way to stand out. And it'll differ depending on the industry. Like if you're selling to a really obscure niche that isn't prospected a lot by cold email, you can probably get away with not having a very like different approach or being very creative with the personalization and whatnot. But if you're selling like if you're selling agency services, like you have to really be standing out because everyone else is doing that too, right? So we do look at like how competitive is the industry we're selling into, and the more competitive is, the more that you need these very creative approaches and to like think far outside of the box.
But AJ, how can people get in contact with you, and who specifically should or who should not get in contact with you? Let's do some real time segmentation here, just to practice what we preach. So, who should contact you? In what situation would someone get the best experience working with you guys?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, first, anyone who just wants to learn can get in contact with me if they want to learn from my stuff I post on social media or ask me questions. In terms of who we're a good fit for at Revenue Boost, typically working with B2B SaaS or B2B high ticket services. Ideally doing like a minimum of 500K per year. And then they want to either add Outbound as a channel, or maybe they're already doing it, but they want to pass it off to someone else to get better results.
Yeah,
And
wonderful.
best way to get in touch would be aj@revenueboost.net. But also social medias I'm active on would be LinkedIn, Facebook, and also YouTube, which is just my name, AJ Casada.
Well, you've got to go to bed because it's late where you are, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Retention Effect. I'm proud to call you a friend, and can't wait to see you at the next event. Thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of Retention Effect. So glad that you're here. If this was helpful for you, I would just ask that you could share this off with one person who you think would find this valuable. Be sure to check the show notes for any additional calls to action and contacts. You can reach out to AJ or us at Rivado if you happen to need some churn reduction and failed payment recovery. We've got your back there as well. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Nice.